and need for planning in any project or any initiatives what we take up. So now as part of this project planning, we would be trying to understand what is project planning fundamentals, then why project planning, tools for project planning, and then basic project planning steps. So let us look at a scenario, what happens if there is no planning in place, right? So if you look at a scenario where one of the executives in the organization who is in the project is tensed, and what is the reason the person is tensed? If you go and inquire that person, so he says, I have issues in estimating the budget. Now when we say planning, planning is not just about budget. Planning is beyond budget, so which involves many things like schedule, which is time, the scope, which means the deliverables, as well as the resources and other things what we need to do the project, and to understand what is the deliverables in requirement perspective. Similarly, we speak about quality, we speak about risk, we speak about stakeholders, procurement. So likewise, the planning is bigger than just a budget, but however, in this case, we are just looking at a scenario where estimating the budget has become an issue. So what could be the reason that has become an issue? Right, that might be because you haven't planned for project properly, so which requires a detailed understanding or proper understanding of whatever we are doing. So let me tell you how you can make sure it doesn't happen again with the help of project planning. This is what the response from experienced personnel in the organization who is into PMO or who is into project management practices on regular basis, who has a significant amount of experience. So that is the reason he could able to point out, let us look at the planning. So only then we can able to have a proper understanding about what needs to be done and what is there exactly we need to focus on. So now, what is project planning? Now, when we look at a project as a whole, when we visualize project as a whole, planning is one of the important part. Now, if I look at PMI's framework, we speak about 49 project management processes. Till PMBOK 6th edition it was defined. So now, out of 49 processes, 24 processes are dedicated for planning, which means almost 50% of the processes are there for planning, and that is the only area where you have the processes in all the knowledge areas. So we speak about 10 knowledge areas like integration, then scope management, then cost management, schedule management, risk management, quality management, communication management, stakeholder management, procurement management, resource management. So in each of these knowledge areas, we have the processes when it comes to planning. But when I say I'm going to initiate the project, I'm going to execute the project, I don't see processes in all the knowledge areas, and it has its own reason. We'll not get into that. However, the important point what we need to have an understanding is planning plays such a significant and important role, where majority of the clarity you obtain, you have to obtain during the planning. So we will have this confusion. So when I go with the detailed planning of something, I may end up in having some changes in between. Means whenever there is an uncertainty in the project, uncertainty is huge. Now there you cannot have a detailed planning for entire project, but you may require to have the detailed planning for the extent it is visible to you. To the extent it is clearly visible to you. As a project manager, then you can able to execute that part of it and get into elaborating further and then understand the next part of the project if you are going as agile way of doing the projects. But however, in either of the cases, whether you are going with the predictive approach of the project or you are going with the adaptive approach of the project, in either cases planning is must and it plays very important role. So many a times we only look at the deliverables part of it. You only look at some processes relating to executing part of it. We miss out in terms of risk, we miss out in terms of quality, maybe we miss out in terms of analyzing on the effort and resources. So these will actually create issues as you progress in the project, and you may find difficult in taking the project to the directions required, to the objective, what needs to be accomplished. So first thing we should have a clarity is any project when organization takes up, Organization takes up the project for a reason, maybe because of solving certain problem, or improving or enhancing certain performances, or enhancing certain features functionalities in the particular product or services, or wanted to introduce some new product or services into the market. Likewise, there are many reasons organization would have to take up the project. And when organization takes up the project, we should keep in mind organization takes up the project for a reason, business reason. Now, as a project manager, I need not worry about revenue, but I may require to have a proper understanding of why the project is taken up, what is the reason the project is taken up, and what is that organization is trying to accomplish out of it. When as a project manager I have the clarity, it helps me to take the project in a specific direction. So we should not have any ambiguity, or not having the clarity. Instead, as a project manager, one has to obtain that clarity, and to that context, to have everything set aligned to the directions, we may require to plan. So everything we do in the project should be aligned to what we are doing. However, in planning, everything should be visible, must. Only then you can able to bring that alignment. If it is not available during the planning, if we are not considered during the planning, then obviously we may find difficulty in taking things into that required alignment or accomplishing that objective, because your execution will be based on your planning, and all that you monitor and control will be based on what is defined during the planning. Similarly, when you close, before closure, you check whether everything is accomplished. Again, that is what is defined in the planning. We may have something defined before project is taken up, but the justification happens there for sure. But for aligning to that, you do planning. So everything should be in line, and what intent the organization wanted to accomplish, that needs to be achieved, and that requires a proper planning. So looking at a project in entirety, right? In a project in entirety, project may have multiple stages or phases. Project may have multiple packages to deliver. Project will have multiple deliverables. So each of these would consider initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closure. Now at each level. So if I look at a project level, yes, definitely it is there. If I look at a stage or phase level, yes, it is there. If I look at a specific deliverables, yes, it is there. At every level, we plan. So since our interest, our focus of this particular session is to look at the importance of planning, project planning, let us focus on planning part of it. But however, I will give you some overview of the framework, project management framework, how it would look like. So when I say initiate, what should I initiate? So initially, the initiation happens from business itself, as I mentioned already, for accomplishing certain objectives. Through that trigger, project is taken up, a business case would be created, a project charter will be created, and that project charter will be handed over to the project manager. While creating this project charter, that would be considering all those details which is mentioned in the agreement or the business case, and then that will provide an entire summary of the project, what needs to be accomplished, what is that organization aiming to accomplish through this project. So having that clarity, project manager would take up and connect with stakeholders, and then identify all the stakeholders, discuss with them, bring in SMEs, have a team structure, and then create a detailed planning if it is predictive, or a skeleton plan if it is agile approach, adaptive kind of thing. So once the planning is done, it's all about execution. So as a project manager, the project manager as an individual may not be doing the hands-on of that particular project execution. However, the project manager would be involved actively in terms of ensuring all those resources are available, all those processes are complied with, then all the stakeholders are connected, updated, deliverables are happening as per the plan. So project managers should see that it is happening and get the things done. So in many project management session, I keep telling people, keep asking me this question specifically: do project managers should have a subject matter expertise? Answer is yes, not to the extent where project manager will go sit and do the configuration, but however, project manager should know what question to ask, what exactly the team is speaking about. Project manager should be able to visualize that. So meaning project manager should do the groundwork immediately while you get into planning. So as you get into planning, do the groundwork, understand that in entirety, understand from the SMEs, understand from the industry experts, or you do your own groundwork to know what exactly it is, speak to business, and then only then during the execution you know exactly what is that output can be expected, and accordingly you do monitoring and controlling. So from execution to monitoring and controlling, so while we do monitoring and controlling, so as the deliverables comes out or as the features is been introduced, so there should be metrics to measure, there should be methods to measure those metrics, and each of those metrics, critical success factors or key performance indicators, one should be able to analyze and understand, interpret. So it should not look like just a number. I'm working to accomplish that number. It should not look like that. So accomplishing that number should result in accomplishing the intended objective. So that is a kind of understanding team should also have. So through monitoring and controlling, one should align the entire thing by giving that picture, snapshot, how things are going in execution. So which project manager should actively involve here as well to understand, but this is based on what is being planned. Then once it is confirmed, everything is accomplished or achieved according to the plan, then that can be declared for closing. Further it can be an acceptance. So without having any confirmation in monitoring and controlling that everything is accomplished, things cannot move towards closure. So once it is done in monitoring and controlling, once the validation is done, then only the acceptance can happen. So once the acceptance is done, formality of handing over the product or feature, putting into production, having formal sign off from the customers happens in closure. But acceptance in terms of features delivered or it is according to what we have planned, those are checked in monitoring and control and formalized in closure. So let us move towards planning. What exactly happens in planning? So we get into defining objectives, so explaining the scope. Now speaking about defining objectives and explaining scope. Now I told business has taken up a project with an intent that will have a direction. Now to accomplish that particular objective, the planning should have its own set of objectives considered in alignment with the objective what is defined. It is a context, the direction what is set. So those objectives should be clear to the team. It is not just about defining, those needs to be explained to the team. So team should be well aware of what exactly they are going to accomplish by doing this. Then explaining the scope. Now scope, when you say, one should visualize both the deliverable as well as what I should do to deliver it. For example, if I am making a pot, for example, a clay pot. A clay pot would be having certain shape, size, color, thickness of the wall of that pot. So this is a specification of pot. That is the output, that is a deliverable, and that itself will have the scope. So clay pot will have the scope, and to accomplish that clay pot as an output, I need the clay mix, I need to have that wheel which is used, I need to have a person who know that pottery activity to make that pot, and all that resources, materials, what is required to do it. Now one is the scope of that output itself, which you can call it as product scope. Other one is scope of the activities, the processes, the resources, what we do. So the scope of output we can call it as a product scope, and the scope of what we want to accomplish that results we can call it as project scope. So we cannot go other way around. We cannot define the project scope and say that I am going to accomplish this deliverable. No. So first we need to understand what is the output, what is that requirement we are going to fulfill, have the clarity, have the description, have the picture, how exactly it looks like once it is completed, and then you come back and define what process I need to do this, what resources I need, and what effort I require, what budget I need, who are the stakeholders for this. All that picture will come only when you have the clarity about what is that I am going to deliver from the project. So product scope as well as project scope. Then scheduling task. Now I said project scope. Product scope we understood what is to be delivered. Now project scope, when I say, we have a set of activities, we have a set of resources, we need the budget, we need to have an involvement of stakeholders. Now all of these should happen at a specific point in time. Everything cannot be done in a specific one time, right? So it needs to be sequenced. It has to be understood what kind of sequence it is. So how am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? When is very important. So each of this activity, what I need to carry out to accomplish that particular results, I need to have the schedule defined clearly. So when? So some activities may happen in parallel, some happen in sequence. For example, if I take a wall in a construction project, if I take a wall, after doing the plastering of the wall only, I can do the curing. I cannot do the wall finishing as well as curing of the same wall at the same time. It cannot be in parallel. Whereas I can construct a wall 1, meanwhile parallelly I can have a construction of other wall or curing of other wall I can do. But wall A, if I say the plastering of that wall and curing that of wall, I cannot change the sequence. It should be in sequence only. Whereas parallelly, if I am constructing another wall on the other side and curing that is possible, which can be done in parallel. So that we need to visualize when we schedule, when we set that sequencing of that activities, we may require to have a proper understanding of that. That is about scheduling tasks or activities. Then generating progress reports. Now it is very important, anything and everything we do, we may require to capture, we may require to analyze, we may require to review, we may require to see what can be improved, we may require to look at what can be optimized, and we need to understand what is going good, what is not going good, how can we overcome that, something which is not going good, how can we further improve on what is that we are doing good. So we need to analyze that. So for that, first and must is to understand how is it now. We wanted to have this to happen in certain way. Is it happening that way, or is it happening in some other way? What is it exactly it is happening? So we may require to capture the details. So while planning, I said we may require to consider critical success factors, key performance indicators, metrics to measure. But we should know, what does this metrics mean? How am I going to analyze this? So if I say 80% of utilization means what? What is my interpretation? Should I keep quiet or should I do something about it? We should understand that. So now I am supposed to accomplish something in 25 minutes. I did that in 30 minutes. What does it signify? 5 minutes extra I took. Is it okay? So it depends on what deliverable, what activity, how important is the deliverable. So that understanding should have. So those things has to be analyzed by capturing those details as a report and reviewing that significantly, thoroughly, along with the team as well as the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders. And then the way you represent that particular report may have the variation, because when I use that metrics to discuss and review with the team, the objective will be different. Whereas when I do it with my boss or my customer or some other stakeholder, the objective may be different. What they want will be different. So I cannot get into the detail what I discuss with the team. Similar details I cannot discuss with the other stakeholders. It depends who are the stakeholders with whom I am going to discuss this and what is that I am going to present and how are we going to depict this and what exactly we are going to learn. What is that we are going to do further from this. So project will have a specific objectives and directions clearly mentioned. But to take it in that direction and understanding whether it is in direction or not, or are we required to do some changes to bring it back if there is a deviation. All this needs to be, the clarity needs to be obtained. Now what are those planning fundamentals? We may require to have clarity in terms of what is that we need to consider while planning very clearly. So here determining scope, cost and resources. So the process of scope, cost and resources, I said 10 knowledge areas I mentioned earlier. So in that scope, cost and resources, so definitely 3 important areas which helps in estimating time required to complete the project, the number of people needed and with what skill set. Now this is one tricky thing. So now it is not just about human resource, it's about skill set. Now in that skill set, again you speak about to what extent. Is it at expert level or at the basic or intermediate? What is that exactly? To what extent? What is expected out of that role? All this depends on deliverables, what we need to do, right? So the understanding of this one can have by having the work breakdown structure. Now many times I have seen whenever I use this term work breakdown structure, people straight away get into writing the list of activities and then organizing them in certain order. That is not the way to do the work breakdown structure. So now whenever we start doing work breakdown structure, first thing one needs to focus on is on the deliverable. Now for example, if I take a bottle as a deliverable, a simple water bottle. Now water bottle, if as a user, if I look at it, it just looks like a plastic one, a transparent one with a cap, water filled inside. That's how it looks like for me as a user. But for someone who is creating it, for someone who is making it, I need to have certain activities, processes which are required, equipments, resources which are required to create that bottle, right? So what does the bottle will have as a deliverable? It will have that body, right? The main bottle body. It will have a cap, and along with the cap there will be a ring which will just use to seal that particular cap. Then it is not plain bottle, right? So you will have a wrapper around it. That is another deliverable. If you want to do the breakdown of this bottle, I would say cap as one part, cap ring as another part, maybe body as another part, body wrapper as another part. Now further I can have a description. So cap will have a specific color, cap will have a specific size, right, and specific circumference, radius, thickness. Similarly the cap ring. Then water bottle, if you take again that transparency level, kind of material of that bottle and its specifications, the design you want to have on the bottle. It's a ring design or some S design, whatever, as you look at the bottle, or a plain one. And then base of the bottle, neck of the bottle. Then comes the wrapper which you put it across, the sticker part of it. What is that the sticker is all about? What is the combination? What is the design of the sticker? So likewise, I will break down. So bottle looked very simple. So same thing if I visualize for a car as an example. So I can say car interiors, car exteriors, and intelligence of the car as three main parts, breakdown parts. Similarly then the interiors, if I speak about, I can speak about under interiors, the seat, the gear lever, the steering, right, the floor, then the dashboard. I can have that breakdown. And further, and inside there is a mirror as well, right? So if I speak about further, if I break down, if I take a seat as an example, so seat has a base, seat has a backside one, headrest, then the seat mount, like as many things comes up. So I keep breaking down like this until logically I cannot subdivide. Now similarly, if I take exteriors, I can take body, bonnet, then rear view mirror outside. Likewise I can do intelligence. If I take like engine system or intelligent AC system, likewise I can have the breakdown. Let us take car rear view mirror as an example. If I break it down further, mirror cap, mirror mount, mirror glass, right? Similarly I can speak about mirror motor, likewise. Now can I further subdivide this? Mirror glass, mirror cap, I cannot do. So I will stop there. For each of the breakdown items, I keep breaking down to the extent where logically I cannot subdivide. It doesn't make to subdivide further. Now what I will do, the work breakdown structure, the technique we call it as decomposition. We do top down, as shown in the picture here. Top down it is going. So now once you have this top down structure, breakdown structure, which we call it as a product breakdown structure. Once I have the product breakdown structure, then I'll go bottom up now. What will I do? Bottommost item I will take. For example, mirror glass I will take as an example. So what is the thickness of the glass? Definitely rear view mirrors are convex mirrors. What is that convex specification of that mirror? What is the thickness of that mirror? What is the size and shape of that mirror glass? I'm speaking about glass only. I've not even touched about a cap. I have not even touched about motor till now. I'm just speaking about the glass alone, mirror glass alone. And once I have the specification to that mirror glass, to that I would see what resource I need for it. What effort is involved to make the glass, right? And what is the budget? What is the risk involved? What is that quantity I need to make? So all these details I am putting at that level itself, lower level. Then I'll move to the cap. I'll speak about all of this relating to the cap. I do estimation of that. Then I'll speak about the mount, mirror mount. Then I'll speak about the motor. Likewise, from bottom up, I will do it for every element and keep consolidating upwards. As I consolidate upwards, at the ultimate consolidation level, top level, I will have overall budget I will have overall schedule or effort. I will have overall resources required, total resource required. I will have what are the activities involved in consolidation. Likewise, I have a consolidation upwards. So once we have this consolidation, we can easily look at the effort involved, the budget involved, and further we can optimize. So that's where work breakdown structure is very essential. So now whenever I speak about work breakdown structure, a simple question which comes up, common sense question, not the wrong one, asking, okay, it is very good if I know what is the deliverable clearly. So more, in today's environment, we are speaking more and more about adaptive in nature, the projects with adaptive in nature. A lot of changes keeps coming in. People speak about becoming agile, etc. Now what is happening here? How do I create work breakdown structure? Nothing to worry. So now if you take an example of a bank introducing a mobile app for mobile banking, let us give an assumption. Now what happens here? Even though there are a lot of mobile banking applications available, we are used to it. Bank cannot release the full-fledged product simply because the investment perspective, enabling the bank consumers to use that app. If I take me as an example, till now I never used the mobile banking application of the bank with whom I have the account. They have motivated me many times. I never used it. I never thought of using it. I'm using third-party application and integrating everything. Then does it mean that I don't like my banking application of the bank with whom I have an account? Answer is it is not the answer. Something like I've never wanted to test it. I did not find time to look at it. I'm not motivated enough to look at it. The existing one is okay with me, kind of thing. So if that happens, the investment of bank will be waste, right? So they need to motivate their customers to use the application and see what kind of transaction is happening in that account, and only then they can able to invest further. They have to take the feedback from their consumers and then move forward. So there we have the agility. Changes keeps coming in, prioritization changes. So here, as a mobile banking application, I know what components are involved, features are involved. Only priorities will be changing. In this case, I will not have an issue of creating work breakdown structure. But in a scenario where I am doing some research, I am introducing new product to the market, unique new product to the market, which I don't have any clarity how it will function, but still to some extent I will have the clarity about the product. So whatever the extent of clarity you will have, you should do this breakdown so that you can able to track them. So as you bring in new features to it, where it doesn't, where it is not mentioned in the WBS structure, you can keep adding to this WBS structure so that pictorially you have something in front of you. So tracking will become simpler and easier later. So that's about our breakdown structure. So identification of problem, right? So variety of techniques such as conducting surveys or meetings are used to collect information to assess problem. So it is not just about problem, it's all about opportunity also. Right? So problem management, when I say that usually we do proactively, we do reactively. So proactive problem management is always foreseeing what can happen if I continue like this as it is. What happens if this happens, what if conditions we will analyze, and then we take action. That is proactive problem management. Reactive is something has occurred, to resolve it, we'll get into that. So in either of the cases, identification of problem is very important. So problem resolution can help in terms of enhancing and boosting something as part of your organization's functionalities. So within the project, there may be something which needs to be addressed. So this needs to be analyzed. So planning helps in analyzing this proactively. You're not reactive to anything, so you are proactive. Business may be reactive to some extent. In that case also can be proactive in terms of problem management. So there may be multiple problems, single problem, some problems where you may require to have an attention need to be paid immediately. So one interesting part is whenever I ask someone what is your understanding about problem, they say issue, they speak about some failure. So they find difficult to link the term problem to actual meaning of the problem itself. So when I say issue, when I say occurrence of something, that we can call it as an event or issue or incident. That cannot be a problem. So for occurrence of this event, for occurrence of that incident, for occurrence of that issue, there may be certain trigger, root cause. That root cause can be called as problem. So that correct understanding we should have whenever we say identification of problem. Something failed. Like for example, internet failed in this training. That is not a problem. Internet failed means it is an incident occurred. Why internet failed? As I go deeper and try to understand why it failed, then we will see the cause. That is the problem. That if you address, we can eliminate many ways, improve the availability of the incident and reduce the number of incidents related to internet not available. So that's what the problem is. The problem doesn't come in operations or business as usual. We will find such things in the project also. So to address the problem, sometimes we take up the project. So which we need to have a proper clarity about what is the problem we are trying to address. But remember, any project what we take up introduces change to the environment. Problem resolution, if I say, that resolution itself is a change happening to the environment. If I bring in a new structure in the place where it is an empty land, then that new structure is introduced to that environment. Likewise, every project introduces change. So in a way, a change, project management is change management. That we should keep in mind always. Then identification of stakeholders. Now, as I take up a project, when I have a project charter as a project manager, I would have specific deliverables, specific objectives to accomplish. But who will be there with me? Who can give me the proper clarity or requirement? So I need to connect with stakeholders. As a project manager, foremost thing which I need to do is to check who are the stakeholders. I need to connect with the stakeholders. I need to identify the stakeholders. Initially, I identify the stakeholders fine, but that is not the end. Identification of stakeholder is not a one-time job. We need to keep evaluating on the stakeholders, their impact, their influence, and influence of project and impact of project on stakeholders. And this is repetitive thing. Reason being, the stakeholders who were there initially when we actually started the project may not be there. Various different reasons. There may be resignations, there may be promotions, there may be change of role as part of that organization's job rotation, role rotation, many reasons. So we may require to keep identifying the stakeholders, re-evaluating the existence of those stakeholders, and then keep updating our stakeholder register. So who can be stakeholders? Stakeholder can be an organization, stakeholder can be an individual, stakeholder can be a group of teams, anything. So who can influence, impact directly, indirectly, get influenced, get impacted directly and indirectly. All these are stakeholders. So identify the stakeholders, capture them in the stakeholder register, look at what is their importance. We call it as something like power interest grid. What is the power of a stakeholder? What is their interest relating to this project? For example, if I'm doing an IT project and if I consider IT head as a stakeholder, obviously high in power, high interest, because project is related to IT. At the same time, for this IT project, if I have an HR head, high in power, but low interest. If the project is not related to them, for example, I am working on a project to have a network connectivity from an internet service provider, LAN connectivity as part of our need of organization. HR department or HR head is least worried about it because their objective is totally different. Their focus will be in a different direction altogether, but high in power. How do I engage with HR head? How do I engage with IT head? That I can define based on this power and interest. So we have something called power interest grid, which can be used to put the stakeholders in each of the grid part and see how do we engage. So that is very important. This may keep changing based on the position changes or involvement of new stakeholders time to time, and then accordingly you need to keep having the change of strategies to engage with that stakeholders. Then defining project objectives. So a plan is made keeping in mind the various expectation of stakeholder. So very important, when I say plan, please remember organization or customer will have certain requirement. That will be the scope of the requirement. To fulfill that requirement, you will have the solution. So solution will have certain requirements. Now these solutions, to fulfill these solutions, you have the resources, you have the process, you have the facility. That is a set of requirements you will have. Likewise, requirement is of various different layers, and this requires a specific alignment. Similarly, you will have a requirement at a stakeholders level. So unless you understand and how they connect with each other, if you do not have the clarity, you cannot bring that alignment required. So that needs to be analyzed carefully. So the success of project entirely depends on how much of expectation can the project meet. So by default, expectation is achieving 100%, accomplishing the expectation 100%. That's where you see the success of the project. But many times the project may not achieve everything, various different reasons. But you as a project manager should not aim for not achieving everything. If something is going out of the hand which you cannot control, organization cannot control, definitely a project manager will be in touch with project board or sponsor. They are unable to help you in bringing things under control. Obviously it means it is out of control from the system itself. So such things you cannot do anything, like business acquisition, or you may have some disaster scenarios. Many such things comes up, because of which project may not complete as per the intent what you have. You may not accomplish those. It may close prematurely. However, which is in your control, you should know, and you should move towards the direction what is required to accomplish the project, and that needs to be updated to the project board or project sponsor or PMO, whoever is that project governance authority. A project manager should have a good handshake with them on a regular basis, and a review with the team always, right? Only then you can able to achieve that objectives, and whatever you plan should consider all of this. So here we speak about risk, right? So if something gets deviated, why it will deviate? Like power failure in this training I told. Well, power may fail, that is a risk. So when we run this session, if power fails or internet fails, are we ready to handle it? Yes, to some extent. Okay, power goes off. I have the UPS. I may say my laptop has the battery, but laptop has the battery, but what about internet? Internet systems should need the power. So obviously we need to have an UPS. What if UPS fails? Can you work beyond that? I don't think so. We should work beyond that. That risk remains, but probability of such occurrence is very less, right? So that we need to analyze. Similarly, if you speak about something which we accomplish as part of this session, the object is what we need to accomplish. We were not able to accomplish it 100%. That uncertainty remains. So to what extent we can able to accomplish it, what efforts we may require to put to accomplish it, that's what we need to analyze and then move forward and be ready for it. All right. Now, till now we spoke about what is need of project planning and what are the life cycle of a project, what are those involved, like initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, then closure. Then we spoke about some fundamentals of project planning. Now, why project planning? Let us look at that. So, with proper planning, it will help us in terms of reducing cost and time. Instead of saying reducing cost and time, I would say optimizing cost and time. So by monitoring and then ensuring that things are under control as we progress. So project planning helps us to accomplish that. Increase employee satisfaction. This is one important thing. So we keep hearing this. Happy employee means happy customer. How many times have we heard about it? But in reality, is it true? Now, why do we say happy employee means happy customer? A satisfied employee will have more tendency to contribute to organization and its success. So, how do you keep employees satisfied? It is very subjective, but while doing the planning, you may require to ensure to fulfill or satisfy the need of the stakeholders involved. So, employee is one important stakeholder. When I have taken up a project, can I have all the employees of organization satisfied? Answer is no. Then who is that employee we are referring to? Maybe like users who are going to use this particular product or service, the team members, whoever is involved in doing this project. So visualizing them and ensuring that those particular set of stakeholders are happy, involved, right? They contribute and complement to the project. So focus on engaging team for greater project performance. So unless the team is motivated, you cannot see that they connect to the users better. So if users connection is not not there with the people who are actually engaged in the project, because as a project manager you may not go and speak to all the users, right? So to test or to implement or something, to show, to demonstrate, etc. So there should be user satisfaction. Whenever there is a query from users, the team should respond to them well. For example, we took up a project of moving from Windows XP to latest operating system because Windows XP support was stopped. Now users are on ground. The team should go and work with them because the production will get impacted if we just take things randomly. It has to be scheduled, the schedule should be communicated, a new platform, new things what is coming up. There should be education to the users, user enablement should happen. Technology is one part for sure, that needs to plan. The procurement has to be planned better and you should do it. But when there is no proper connect with the users and the team doesn't connect, when will team connect? Team should have clarity. Team should have the sense of accomplishment, only then they connect better. So bringing such engagement with the customers and users is very essential. Then implementing quality assurance. Now quality assurance should happen as we go. We use two terminologies, right? Quality assurance, quality control. So quality assurance focuses on compliance, quality assurance focuses on accomplishing the objective of processes, what is told, what is mentioned, doing it 100%, less deviations or zero deviations, and doing all that's required to be done as per the plan. So since planning gives that clarity, obviously one should be able to understand that plan and then take things forward accordingly. Then reduces project risk. Already, as I mentioned, risk means uncertainty of occurrence of something. So there are many known things which can happen. For example, if I take this training, what are those things which can go wrong? Internet may fail, power may fail, laptop may fail, the platform may fail, trainer may become sick, or participants may create noise, right? The backend team is not supporting in time. Many things can happen. The PPT is not coming up properly, the streaming platform is not working properly. So all these are uncertainty. All these are working at the moment, but they are uncertain. In what probability? Let me say 5% uncertain. Are we ready to handle it? So we should make ourselves ready to handle that uncertainty. So we should have the mitigation plans. We should have a resolution for it proactively. Only then we can able to address it. Now when can we have this visibility as this kind of risks are there in each of this thing what we are doing? Through experience, with the involvement of SMEs, with the involvement of someone who has actually experienced this journey, they can give that visibility. These type of occurrences can happen relating to this. And also hypothetically you can come up with what else can happen. Like for example, with one of my customers, when we were discussing, we were supposed to take over the entire operations from the existing service provider. So customer came up with one interesting thought. What if the existing service provider moves away in hostile way? So they declare from tomorrow we are not going to support. What will you do? Are you ready to take over that from tomorrow itself? What is your readiness? It's very interesting. The probability is very lesser than 1%. But the business interest of the entity is engaged with the brand value what they want to establish. Nobody will pull out just like that. But however, we cannot ignore that query what customer had. So we gave the sufficient explanation of our readiness. Hostile exit is an interesting thing. Many times you will have this from the employees. If not the service provider, many of your team members can have that hostile exit. They would have absconding scenarios. How do you handle that? What if your SME is absconding? What if someone who is supposed to deliver one important thing, maybe not a significant SME, but the deliverable perspective, the availability of the team members are very important, but they are not available. What will you do? So now these kind of risk factors which needs to be looked at. When I say risk, the uncertainty, not just negative always. Risk by default we call it as uncertainty with certain probability of occurrence and impact. But risk doesn't mean only negative. It can be positive also. What can be positive risk? I can have a overwhelming results. I thought it will achieve 100%. It went beyond that. Very nice, no? So like for example, COVID-19 pandemic scenario, we thought our productivity would reduce because everything is working from home. Instead, productivity increased. Earlier it used to be around 70%, has become 120%. Possible, that is positive risk. So uncertainty. In what perspective, in what what is the chance, in what probability it can become an improvement in terms of productivity when people go working from home? I don't know. Maybe I would say 2% possible probability. It can happen. So any uncertainty is risk. It is positive, it is negative, but we will have a tendency to look at the negative part of it because it will have an impact. It will pull away us from what we are supposed to accomplish. That is the reason we look at negative risk and analyze them regularly. As I spoke about stakeholder register, here also you may require to establish risk register, but again it is dynamic document. As you progress in the project life cycle, new risks will get introduced. Many risks what you identified initially may not be there. The probability of that impact may go off. So likewise, new risks will get introduced, existing risks may have a different kind of impacts, kind of thing. Power failure, if I take an example as a risk for this training, what if power failed when I started the session? Entire session is gone, impact. What if it goes off at the last 5 minutes of the session? Negligible impact. Occurrence is same, power going off, but when it occurs, the proximity of occurrence also matters. So likewise, we may require to keep evaluating the risks throughout the project life cycle. Identify new risk, add it to the list, and then analyze them regularly throughout the project life cycle. That is very important. Then tools for project planning. So definitely we may require to have a set of tools while we plan, like WBS thing what we saw earlier. Likewise, many tools and techniques we need as we go through the planning. One is Gantt chart. So Gantt chart, we use it for having visibly represented schedule, right? So I think any tool if you see today, including Excel sheet, I'm telling, so as a MS project or Primavera or the Google project sheet or Excel sheet, any kind of project management practices, if you see, you will see the visual representation like Gantt chart. So Gantt chart is one type of view. Other one is we can think about network diagram view. So once you establish a Gantt chart, you can have a network diagram view which will show you when the activity is going to start, what is the sequence of the activity, and how they are connected, each of the activities, with the dates, with the resources, with the activity, what needs to be accomplished. Right. With the color combination, you can say that when it is starting, when it is ending. Likewise, similarly, we have critical path method, where you have tool determining each of the activities. And critical path means in a given diagram, network diagram, the longest path is called as critical path. So the duration of the longest path of the network diagram will be the duration of the project. So why do we call that as a critical path? We call it as a critical path because any delay in the critical path will delay the project itself. Any delay in the critical path will delay the project itself. That is the reason we call it as critical path method. So another one we have like critical chain method. So critical activities which are essential for accomplishing the required results, which has to be looked at very carefully. See, if something delays there, will delay the project. So critical path method is crucial tool for determining the progress of project, so that project is on schedule, right? So longest path and delay in the critical path will delay the project. So similarly, we have like PERT chart. PERT refers to program evaluation review techniques, which will help in analyzing the tasks to complete the project and time required to complete those tasks. We call it as 3-point estimation while analyzing this. Optimistic, pessimistic, most likely estimates, and accordingly what would be the estimate of the duration, right, which we'll use in terms of planning. Then work breakdown structure, I guess we went through it in detail already. So we do decomposition top down and do product breakdown first, and then we go bottom up, adding budget, resources, schedules, efforts, then resources required, then how long it takes, in what sequence. Sequencing can happen after having the work breakdown structure. Like we said, critical path method or Gantt chart sequencing, those we can do only after work breakdown structure. Then project documentation. Now project documentation starts from the point where you create a project charter. Before that, there is a documentation. Documentation in terms of agreements, documentation in terms of business case, many such documents which are referred while creating a project charter. Project charter will become a first document handed over to the project manager. From then project manager would go create the stakeholder register, then scope documents, then risk documents, budget part of it, schedule part of it, then risk, quality, procurement related to contracts and agreements, then register required to all of this, the stakeholder register. Because many documents which are created, then referred, updated throughout the project life cycle. So which are very essential. Now when something called Agile Manifesto we may come across, it says, one of the manifesto points says, deliverables, delivering the features over documentation. Now, does it mean that we are ignoring documentation? Answer is no. Comprehensive documentation, that's what the word it uses. We need documentation. To what extent? To the extent what is required for that scenario. If it is adaptive, obviously, the minimum documentation required. As we progress, we can keep updating that and consolidate it. Whereas predictive, obviously, end-to-end view anyway you will have. So you can create a comprehensive documentation in one go. So why do we not do full-fledged comprehensive documentation in adaptive? Simply because any changes comes up. So we'll have a lot of changes to be done in the documentation also, which will become tedious exercise. But we are not ignoring documentation. Right, so project documents helps in capturing what is that actually done and what is that we have planned, did we really accomplish, and it will also become evidence to prove that we have done it. So very important. So basic project planning steps would involve like identifying and meeting the stakeholders, defining scope, then setting and prioritizing objectives, determining deliverables, then create project schedule, risk analysis, set progress reporting guidelines. Now this flow typically looks like linear. So identify and meet stakeholders means you are connected with stakeholders, you are understanding the requirements and then elaborating on the scope, understanding. Then you keep that prioritization, give that importance, what is that first we need to do, what is next. You should have that sequence. Then you get into determining what exactly the deliverable is to accomplish it. And as you have that sequence, work breakdown structures happens here, determining deliverables kind of thing, and the sequencing happens when it comes to create project schedules, and to each of that you may bring up with a risk analysis for all the constraints. Constraints would be scope, schedule, cost, resource, risk, quality. So you would look at risk associated with all of this, and then have a metrics for all of this, and then have a progress report as we mentioned, and this should be a regular thing. So identifying meet stakeholders happens during the initiation part of it. First step is to identify the stakeholders and understanding their expectation. Explained that earlier in the flow as well. Then you will define scope. So project scope involves determining the list of specific project goals, deliverables, budgets and deadlines. Then the project scope helps in establishing boundaries of project and responsibility of each team member. Then you will go set and prioritize objectives. So objectives are set, prioritized once the expectation of stakeholders become certain. Means you are clear now what is the exact expectation of stakeholders. So in this step, finer detail to the initial ideas is set that serves as a reference point all through the project. So then determining deliverables. So deliverables are the reasons why projects are created. It is one of the most important steps to understand those deliverables. So project planning, steps of the project planning determine what these deliverables will be and how will they be delivered in time. Then you create project schedule, which is an outline of different tasks of a project are supposed to begin and end. So remember, project will have a beginning and end. The very definition of project itself says project starts. Project is temporary in nature. The definition of project itself is temporary and over. So it has a beginning, it has the end. It may be for months, it may be for many number of years, doesn't matter. Definitely there is a beginning, there is an end for a project, which creates a unique output. So project schedule helps in measuring project progress and setting up the project progress reports. Risk analysis. So one needs to identify risks and considering steps to deal with it is important step of project planning. Steps to prevent risks from happening or limiting their impact should be considered. Next, set progress reporting guidelines. So there must be a communication plan to update the stakeholders regarding the project progress. This can be done monthly, weekly, or daily, so that all involved members can monitor the progress. And why is it very important? We discussed about in detail earlier, and that needs to be done on a regular basis. And one should have a clarity how the project is progressing, very clear. So I think as this explanation comes up, I guess it is very clear. One can able to plan the projects within the budget and do the things better to accomplish that quality. That's what he's expressing. Thanks for explanation. Now I will be able to plan projects within budget and of better quality. Right, and that's all from my end today about project planning and its importance. Hope you had a good session. Feel free to post your questions in the chat. So also you can contact us visiting www.simplilearn.com and let us know what you like to see further. Take care. All the best.